Susan, just tell me something. What does this story, what we're discussing, tell us about how the Trump campaign is using the media? Because if Hunter Biden's hard drive is a genuine bombshell, why do they need why do they need a news outlet to disseminate it? Why not just dump the data out into the public domain? Why go through the filter of the Post?
Well, it's
The New York
interesting
Post, that is.
well, media, politicians now skip over mainstream media and do what you're talking about. It was really interesting last night at President Trump's rally. He used audio and video of Biden and Kamala Harris talking about ending fracking and other things that would have really concerned the people he was addressing. He was in Pennsylvania. So they do they're their own media outlet in some ways. So I agree with you about that. But they still, people like to leak things based on who they believe will give it the fairest treatment from what they think of the story. For example, the Mueller stuff, if you sent that to conservative outlets, they would have shown more skepticism for a lot of really good reasons. That's a whole different show. But that's how they pick and choose which outlets they want to provide the story to. I think that they were going to first try to get Fox News to air it, and then they ended up with the New York Post willing to air it. The bottom line is it deserves scrutiny by all media outlets. And if they pick and choose this and decide it's not worth their time, I think that's showing real bias. I think everybody deserves to look at the Mueller stuff, and everyone should look at this and give Biden the scrutiny that he's not running for president of the Glee Club. He's running for president of the United States. And this is serious. This is not last year's news. It's whether or not his son was coordinating to get him to talk to these Ukraine oligarchs, and he was benefiting from it. I mean, it's really dirty,
Okay,
and
Brian,
it needs to be looked at.
Forgive me, Brian Stelter, and then I want to move on to the Google, which is a related story. Brian.
I said it was last season. You're saying it's new. I think bottom line is we don't know what is real and what is fake in these emails, if there is anything real in them.
Yeah, but that didn't stop any from reporting the Mueller and the dossier and all that stuff.
You're bitter. I understand that you have a lot of resentment about it.
Now we have ethics. Okay, now we have ethics.
Don't you dare act like newsrooms didn't have ethics in 2017 and 2018.
Well, I know they did. So, well, you can don't dare me all you want, Brian. I've been doing this for 30 years. So say whatever you want. It's my view. And I have a right to say it. I was invited on the
view is that the news media was unethical with Mueller?
Hang on, say one at a time. I don't quite get what you're just.
It's my view. So.
Let me bring in Sarah Fisher, and then I want to move on to Google briefly. But go on, Sarah.
I think this conversation is so critical, even though it can get tense. It's actually a matter of, can you have two things be true at once? Can you have a story that needs scrutiny from all outlets? Because we don't know whether or not it's true, right? Axios, we're all trying to figure out whether or not this story is true, and we deserve to do that. But we also need to think about the bigger picture, which is, God forbid, this story was tied to some sort of bigger disinformation effort to penetrate our elections. We also need to consider that. And that's why I think it's critical that you're not just seeing, you got to see the forest through the trees. You got to look at this particular story about the Hunter Biden.
Yeah, but no one looked through the forest through the trees with the president. I mean, it's always one-sided. Now it's time to look at the forest. All I'm saying is let's do it universally, okay? I didn't discard the Mueller stuff. I was much more skeptical because I knew the sourcing and I knew where I came from on Capitol Hill, where I have stood in the building for the past few decades. I had real reason to doubt that stuff, and I constantly did. And it turned out a lot of it was a bunch of bunk. So
when you say Mueller stuff, there are people in prison.
We have to use that skepticism. We have to. Even now with the Biden stuff, let's use the skepticism, but don't ignore it.
Okay, Susan, let's just Brian come back in this, and then I'm going to ask Tony to help us through the Google case. Brian, go ahead.
I agree with you. It should not be ignored, but I think there's a difference between reporters looking into it in their newsrooms versus going on the air with it when it's unvetted. And what we're in right now is
break. You never did that with Trump stuff. That's just BS.
Hang on a second, Susan. Go ahead, Brian. Susan, just a second. Susan, just a second. See if you both speak. We can't hear either of you. Brian, go ahead.
I understand. Let me just say briefly, it's grievance politics. It comes from the right. It happens every day. Newsrooms in America are very careful about this stuff. I know viewers and readers don't see it, but it happens every day. Slow, cautious vetting happens every day.